Alright, it's Labor Day weekend here in the US, and we have the old New Orleans crew back together. We got Travis and Megan, Bonnie in the back, Vince driving as usual. This time around, we are actually going to upstate New York to do some hiking, so the next time I see you guys, we will be in New York. We're here in New York State. This is my first time in New York, which is astonishing considering I've lived in America my entire life. And today we are going to do the 14-mile gorge hike in Letchworth State Park. We set off down the trail and were all surprisingly energetic considering we'd gotten a pitiful amount of sleep the night before. Hiking next to the roaring waterfalls was more than enough to wake me up and get me excited for the day ahead. Our hike started right underneath the Portage Bridge at Upper Falls, and since we'd arrived early in the morning, there weren't many other hikers out on the trail yet. Taking in the view of the Upper Falls cascading over a jagged cliff underneath the expansive train bridge was a brilliant way to start the day. The awe-inspiring views just kept coming as we trekked downhill along the rim of the gorge, where we found the even more impressive Middle Falls. I guess whoever named these waterfalls wasn't too concerned with creativity. I could definitely see why Letchworth is often referred to as the Grand Canyon of the East. I personally haven't seen a more impressive canyon east of the Mississippi. After Middle Falls, we went to check out the visitor center for more information about the park and got some recommendations about what to see and do during the rest of the day. We actually decided not to do the entire 14-mile hike today because we've already seen the Upper Falls and the Middle Falls and we're really close to Lower Falls, so we're going to hit that up and then we are going to hike back to the car and I think we're going to go to Niagara Falls. An unintentional detour led us to a narrow section of trail along a wooded ridgeline. This wasn't the most direct way to get to Lower Falls, but we all agreed that it was our favorite part of the hike so far. Eventually, the ridge brought us to the parking area for Lower Falls, and we hiked downhill to a stone footbridge where we stopped to eat some of the trail snacks we packed. If I were forced to pick a favorite of the three waterfalls along the gorge trail, I would probably pick the Lower Falls because there was a field of wildflowers in front of it that made it extra beautiful. So we've hiked almost 8 miles at this point. We're almost back to the car. Towards the morning, I was kind of like, where are all these crowds that the internet said would be here? And now it's almost 2 o'clock and there are a lot more people showing up. So recommend, if you can, to get up and do this hike early in the morning because it'll be really peaceful and beautiful. On our walk back to the car, we got to see a train crossing the Portage Bridge and stopped to watch some turkey vultures soaring over the gorge. Then it was time to drive to Niagara, the biggest waterfall by volume in North America. We made it to Niagara Falls. The parking situation here is terrible, but we found a free parking spot out on the street and we've got a little ways to walk now. We ended up walking along the Niagara River for a while since we'd had to park so far away from the actual falls, but this worked out great in my opinion because it was really cool to watch the insanely huge rapids of the river. As far as I was aware at the time, this was my first time seeing Niagara Falls from the New York side. I've been to the Canada side as an adult and as a kid, but since we've been home, my mom informed me that we actually did stop at the New York side on a family road trip when I was very young, although I have zero memory of it. Labor Day weekend may not have been the most ideal time to visit Niagara. Massively long lines kept us from doing a Maid of the Mist boat tour and from going into the Cave of the Winds, but that's to be expected on an impromptu detour to such a popular landmark. We still had a good time watching the hypnotic falls before grabbing dinner in Buffalo and returning to our campsite for some much-needed sleep. This morning we're at Watkins Glen State Park, which is in the middle of a town. Didn't know that was going to be the case, but basically you park and you walk right from the street up to this amazing gorge. For the second day in a row, we embarked along a gorge trail where the main attraction was Waterfalls, but Watkins Glen was nothing at all like Letchworth. The gorge trail at Letchworth had been all about expansive vistas with giant waterfalls, while Watkins Glen had smaller waterfalls and a narrower gorge that had been intricately carved into beautiful layers by the running waters. It also had endless opportunities for me to set up my tripod for long exposure photography, but at times it was difficult to move along the trail because there were so many hikers trying to walk on the narrow pathway. We took the South Rim Trail back to the car instead of the Gorge Trail, which saved us a lot of time on the return hike because the gorge is really the main attraction, so there weren't many other hikers on the canyon rim. This is one of the more crowded trails I've ever been on. It kind of reminds me of Hocking Hills State Park in Ohio. It's really pretty. It's just not quite the peaceful nature experience. It would be great for families with kids. Perfect for that, but if you're looking for high adventure, this isn't the trail to do. If you're looking for nice views of waterfalls and a nice slow pace, this is perfect. While we walked, we brainstormed where to go next, and Bonnie found another nearby trail for us to hike. We decided to try a different trail. This one is, it's an official trail, but it's not very well marked in terms of finding the beginning. It supposedly goes to a waterfall called Excelsior Falls. So far, we haven't seen another living soul. We did see a dead mole with a beetle trying to get into its mouth. That was kind of gross. The path led us straight down a hill to a picturesque stream, where we found a zip line for crossing the creek to where the trail started back up on the other side.
Check that out.
Yeah, and it's nice and cool down here.
Line?
This wasn't really needed because the water level was very low, but that wasn't going to stop us from swinging across the river an unnecessary amount of times. Once we finally managed to pry ourselves away from the zip line and refocus, it didn't take long to find Excelsior Falls. Its flow was really low, just like the rest of the creek, and a thin sheet of water blanketed its surface, giving the illusion that the stone cliff itself was melting down towards our feet. A little further down the trail, I met an adorably curious garter snake that really wanted to figure out what my camera was all about. We found one last waterfall before hiking back to the car so we could begin our long drive home. Upstate New York had been a beautiful place to spend our long weekend. It was really amazing to see such lovely forests and peaceful waterfalls in a state that's probably better known for the fast-paced New York City. I was so glad to have finally gotten a chance to travel there and experience at least a fraction of all of the wonderful things New York has to offer. I bet they made these tables, and then they made the first cairn on each table. And then...
No. Down here. Yeah,
That's fine too, and I'm impressed with how many people found a perfectly round stone to make the tabletop in that case.
Obnoxious people too.